All right. I actually nailed it on the right music beat. I always like that when I start the show. Right is the music. I can't always be doing full DJ mode, so I can't always get it. Welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I have to say, I know I'm starting in a jovial way, but this first story is probably one of the scariest and important stories inside the United States I've covered in a while. Now, there's a lot of scary stories in the United States, so I guess this one gets a little closer to me personally. Maybe that's why. Obviously, I cover people being murdered by ICE all the time, so it's not that there's not scary stories inside the United States. But I, as things go more and more fascist, uh, I have kind of had a little list in my mind of a few people that are like the canaries in the coal mine for if they start rounding up these people, then like I'm just a few ranks below those people in terms of who gets rounded up next. Uh and one of the people on my list is like basically doing living and behaving and speaking in the same space I am, but more on the front lines than I am. One of those people is a friend of the show. I had her on a couple of weeks ago, Medea Benjamin. Now, what I mean by more on the front lines is she's like in Congress every day holding up bloody hands. I mean, it's paint, but I don't think she's using chicken blood or anything. But holding up bloody hands in front of Congress people, telling them to stop supporting a genocide. So that's I'd call that on the front lines. And she was on my little list of this is a canary in the coal mine for when like shit's getting bad for left wing when they're coming after left wingers just for speech. Essentially, I'm not talking about people who support left wing ideas and are blowing up pipelines or something. That's a different level. But anyway, the Trump administration has moved now to subpoena, or has subpoenaed, not moved to, they have subpoenaed Medea Benjamin and Hassan Piker. And subpoena does not mean arrested. It means just investigating. But let's not be dumb. The subpoenas are for the purpose of imprisoning. The goal is to imprison. Why are they bringing these subpoenas? It's not to stop harm to the American people. It's not to stop the terrorists. It's designed to try and imprison left-wing activists, those who speak out from the left-wing side of things. That's what it's for. That's why they're doing it. And this has not really gotten tons of coverage. I know that Fox News covered it, but I don't think they've like covered it extensively. It's gotten a little bit of coverage, but they have moved to subpoena Hassan Piker they have subpoenaed Hassan Piker and Medea Benjamin. Why? For bringing medicine and food and stuff to Cubans. Like, you could not get any more insane of for our world. It's just like, if you try and help people that our government is killing, then you are the enemy. You are a terrorist for trying to help people that our government aims to kill or destroy their lives. Now, I suppose to begin with, you got to define left wing. I do not consider Democrats in Congress. I realize there are some people who consider themselves Democrats across the country, and they don't really understand what that means, and they might be left wing, but they still vote Democrat because they don't really know that it's all rigged against them. But that aside, Democrats in Congress are not left-wing, okay? They're the vast majority of them, if not all of them, are supporting genocide, or supporting wars, or supporting killing people, or supporting capitalism, or supporting the destructive capitalist gravity of this world. So, I don't know why my nose is itchy. I swear it's not cocaine, although if anybody's got any, no, it's just, sometimes the mustache goes rogue, folks. But left wing is not the Democrats in Congress. That's squishy liberal garbage. Left wing, you've got to be anti-war, you've got to be anti-genocide, and you have to really regularly speak out about these things and stick to those ideals, among many others, in my view. Now, I also understand there's a good argument that left wing doesn't really mean anything neither just uh, socialist when you really like break it all down. Because for one person, socialist might mean that some people get some social security when they turn 70 or something. For other people, socialist might mean that the workers control the means of production. The variety of what people believe in their minds when they say a term, that goes for left wing as well. But I don't know a lot. I obviously know Medea personally, and I know a lot of what she stands for and what she fights for. And I actually went on a trip to Cuba with her, but that was way back. I think it was still the Obama years. So I don't think Trump's going to subpoena me for the Obama trip to Cuba. But I don't know as much about Hassan Piker. I know he's hugely popular. I know he has been very good on Gaza, I believe. I know he's obviously very good on Cuba. I know some people dislike him for other reasons. It doesn't really fucking matter to me. But the goal is obviously to imprison the kind of biggest, most well-known left-wing activists. Now, there are people perhaps better known than Medea and Hassan Piker, but the government is so far is subpoenaing with the aim of arresting, with the aim of imprisoning those who have taken some kind of action. So as opposed to just speaking it online, Medea and Hassan Piker did a trip to Cuba to try and bring medicine and not just medicine, but also to get the word out that this is why are we harming Cubans, etc. That was their aim. Anyway, let me read a little of the article, and then I'm going to play Medea's response, although she doesn't really get in depth into the response because I think probably lawyers say don't get into the details of it because that's bad for you. So I will play her response, but it just let you know it's not going to get into the details of the subpoena. U.S. authorities on Saturday issued subpoenas to a political commentator and anti-war activist over recent trips to Cuba and possible violations of sanctions and travel regulations. The inquiry into influencer Hassan Piker and Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin is being led by the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control. Yeah, because Medea and Hassan Piker are totally foreign assets, and is examining possible breaches of U.S. law related to Cuba sanctions. Let's remember that U.S. sanctions on countries are done by a terrorist entity, which is the U.S. government. The U.S. government is a terrorist entity. It blows up innocent civilians on a daily basis. Every day we are murdering innocent civilians. That's kind of our game plan. That's our go-to. That's our love and our passion of our government. And so for them to decide, oh, there's sanctions, we're making it illegal to deal with this country or people there, that itself should be illegal. These laws are what's called, I know it's a complicated term, but I'll sound it out for you. These laws are wrong. Wrong is the word. Fucking wrong. And they just do these things like sanctions on Cuba and sanctions on Venezuela and sanctions on whatever, Russia. And then they arrest the people who violate their sanctions. Well, your sanctions are fucking dumb. Okay. They're toxic nationalism at its best. Anyway, the inquiry is being led by blah, blah, blah. The subpoenas are said to have sought the subpoenaed people are said to have sought financial, travel, and communications. I got confused with a different part of this article. The subpoenas are said to sought financial, travel, and communications records linked to the March visit to Cuba involving as many as 40 U.S. citizens as part of the Nuestra America Convoy, or Our America Convoy. And by the way, everyone else, and I don't see the picture here. Maybe we'll see it later. The picture of the folks on this Cuba trip, which, by the way, a lot of the same folks as when I went to Cuba 10 years ago with Medea. But these are wonderful people, largely older people, Many of the people who go and care so much and have the time, I guess, is another thing, to travel to Cuba and try and bring medicine to like babies. It's a lot of like 70-year-olds, uh, late 60s, maybe some 80-year-olds. And this is grandmas mainly trying to bring medicine to babies. And that's who Trump wants to imprison. Medea also, although she looks like a young lady, she is also a grandma age as well. But let's see. The subpoenas are said to have sought financial. The report said the convoy included activists, influencers, and political organizations that traveled to Havana. Gasp! What? Someone traveled to a city? No! This can't be! Hang them in the town square! They traveled to a place. No! Traveled to Havana with supplies and participated in events organized by groups supportive of the Cuban government. Here's the thing. It's whether it's true or not, it probably isn't even true that they were, did something with the Cuban government or whatever. But even if it were, even if it is true, it's a government of a country. So the fuck what? You went over there and you brought medicine to people that the U.S. has besieged. And even if they were talking with the Cuban government, fine. That's illegal. Like, it's so repulsive that these pedo terrorists that run Washington are like, you went to another country and had the gall to try and bring medicine to babies and old people. And we need to imprison you for that. It is so wildly fucked up. Piker, a political streamer on Twitch. By the way, have you noticed sentences sound more and more like you had a stroke mid-sentence? Guy on a Twitch with a stream and a pokey. I don't know. But anyway, words don't mean anything anymore. Pretty sure we're in a garbage simulation that was actually spawned from a Mad Libs. A Mad Libs came alive, took over our reality. A streamer on Twitch. I'm sorry. It used to be if you had a Twitch streamer, it was something that required antibiotics, but not now. If you had a Twitch in your stream, then you had to have a colostomy bag. A political streamer on Twitch has built a large online following through commentary on U.S. politics and foreign policy. Fox News noted, and by the way, they're quoted from Fox News because Fox News is one of the only places to cover this shit. It's fucking sad. One of the most pathetic news outlets in the world is where you have to go for this article. Fox News noted that some of his remarks have drawn criticism from the White House officials. What? He said something the White House didn't like? Oh my God. Okay. Now I'm on board. Now I think he should be in prison. He said something the White House didn't like. If you're not saying something the White House wouldn't like, then you're doing life wrong. Okay? Especially now. If you have failed to say things that upset the White House, you're doing life wrong. Fix it. Fix it now. The report cited social media posts by Piker about his Cuba trip. Oh no, he said he was bringing medicine to Cuba, and comments he made during a live stream criticizing a Justice Department indictment involving former Cuban leader Raul Castro and Trump administration policy toward Cuba. He criticized the president and the president's policies? Oh my God. This guy is like a real super villain. Jesus Christ. Again, they have not been arrested. A subpoena is like a fact-finding mission, but I'm jumping to the reason they want these subpoenas. The reason they got these subpoenas. They got them because their aim is to imprison these people, and they could do it. They could do it via you violated sanctions by going to Cuba and bringing them medicine. They might try and do it that way. They also one of the reasons they subpoena people is not because they think they'll find anything that impressive, but because they're hoping the person will stumble into a lie, will accidentally lie. about one thing or another, because when you're grilled on every detail of a week that happened several months or years ago, guess what? You're probably going to stumble over something, get something wrong, and then they can say, oh, you lied to a federal blah, 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 and therefore you're going to prison. Medea Benjamin, co-founder of the anti-war group Code Pink. And by the way, the real reason that they've been after Medea and they're after her now is Gaza. Same with Hassan Piker, by the way, because both of those individuals, Hassan Piker and Medea Benjamin, have been harassed or connected to harassment at airports in the past year. One of them, Hassan Piker, reported that he came back from a trip. This is long before the Cuba trip. He came back from a trip and at Chicago O'Hare, they pulled him aside and brought him into a room and grilled him for 5 hours about where he went and why he went there and whether he has connections to Hamas and that kind of shit. And so this is way before the Cuba trip. That's what I'm saying. This is not really about Cuba. This is actually about Gaza. But they are hoping they can nail these people on the Cuba trip. Medea Benjamin, Max Blumenthal reported that when he was pulled aside at the airport and interrogated for several hours, they put a list of people in front of him to say, do you know any of these people? And at the time, he didn't recognize any of the names, but then he looked up later when he got home, he looked up Medea. I think Medea might be her middle name, and so her first name is something else, is Susan or something. And it turned out they were asking if he knew Medea Benjamin. So they've been after Medea and Hassan Piker for a long time. And if you think about it, in terms of the Gaza's a fucking genocide, those who are saying that, Hassan Piker's probably, I'd say he has the biggest audience of someone who's saying it like on a daily basis. I think, again, I don't watch his stuff. I've seen clips, but I think he is saying it regularly. So I don't mean, Joe Rogan has on guests that say, like Dave Smith, that say it occasionally, but I'm talking actually drumbeat Gaza's a genocide. Hassan Piker probably has the biggest audience. And then Medea is one of the only ones, or at least leading the only group, that's like in Congress, walking up to Congress people and saying, you're funded by AIPAC, you have blood on your hands. She's standing up in Congress. So she is the most in your face. So you've got the biggest audience person and the person who's most in their face of the political elite. OFAC officials are examining whether members of the delegation stayed at a hotel included on the State Department's Cuba restricted list. Oh my God. I can't imagine what kind of evil, dastardly, nefarious beds are at that hotel. I can't imagine what goes down at that hotel. Yeah, so you listed a dumb hotel in your dumb list. It shouldn't fucking matter. But of course, that's the type of shit they use to imprison people. So this is all an effort to imprison left-wingers and left-wing activists and those who speak out. Legal experts say the inquiry could remain a civil enforcement matter handled by OFAC or potentially develop into a criminal case under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This is repulsive. And it's fascism. And it's how fascism works. So, and what can we do? Well, one thing we can do is speak up about it. Another thing we can do is protest. But I think for those of you, I know I'm probably not the only live streamer you watch, many of you, and you should put up in the comment threads on the other ones. If they're not talking about this story, you should say they need to, because we need to raise the alert that this is what's happening to left-wingers in this country. Let me show you Medea's response. As I mentioned, she doesn't get into the details of the subpoena because she probably can't legally, but
it looks like the Trump administration is...
Sorry, I got it on fast speed here.
It looks like the Trump administration is investigating me, Hassan Piker, and others for a trip that Code Pink and other groups organized in March to bring medicines and medical supplies to Cuba's pediatric hospitals. Basically, we want to help save babies. And that, according to Trump, is something that must be investigated, because how dare we want to help the Cuban people? How dare we love the Cuban people? And if indeed the charge is that we love the Cuban people, guilty, because I have loved the Cuban people for decades, ever since Cuban doctors saved my life in a remote village of Africa when I was dying from malaria. I love Cuban art. I love Cuban culture. I love Cuban music. I love salsa dancing. I must admit, I'm not a great fan of Cuban food. But in any case, I want my government to leave the Cuban people alone, not to be strangling them by keeping oil from the island, by sanctions that are so brutal. I want them to stop threatening to invade Cuba. I want them to listen to the global world opinion that every single year at the United Nations overwhelmingly says, lift the blockade. So please, if any government officials are watching, don't investigate us for trying to save Cuban babies. Investigate yourselves for what you're doing to kill Cuban babies and make lives of the Cuban people miserable. Leave Cuba alone.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, please show your support for Medea. And to me, this is like a test balloon to see if they can get away with just prosecuting left wingers for speech, for saying things they don't like. Literally, in the request for the subpoena, they said Hassan Piker said things we don't like. So this is not like these people. Medea Benjamin, she is so forthright, and Code Pink is so forthright with their actions, what they are involved in, what they do. They live stream all of it. Like, their actions are speech. Their actions are to go to Congress and say, you're supporting genocide, you're murdering people. Those are their actions. They're not like arming people. They're not, I mean, it's so clear what they're involved in is freedom of speech. And this is repulsive. They're going after, and outside of the left wing, ignore the left wing thing for a minute. They're going after people that bring medicine to the people the U.S. empire is murdering. That's what it is. That's who they're going after right now. And I wanted to also highlight this story about other efforts to go after left-wing speech. This is from Ken Klippenstein. Insane pre-crime strategy unveiled for leftist, quote-unquote, extremists, which extremist doesn't mean anything when they say it. It doesn't mean anything when most people say it. But when the Trump administration or right-wingers say extremist, it means rational human being. It means someone who thinks capitalism is destroying the world, because it is. It's someone who says the U.S. murders innocent people, because they do on a daily basis. So basically, if you have a rational, logical, working, functioning brain, then you're, quote unquote, an extremist. So just know that when they say extremist. The White House declared war on the American people today, labeling its political opponents as terrorists, including left-wing extremists. The new label also claims that there are deepening alliances between the far left and Islamists. What they mean by Islamists is pro-Palestine protesters. Islamist doesn't mean anything either. It just means if you support Palestine, you're Islamist. You're probably an Islamist extremist. They probably combine the two terms into a super scary term. The language is contained in the White House's newly released National Counterterrorism Strategy. It is the first national strategy to be unveiled since 2021, when the Biden administration issued its document. The strategy identifies the left wing, anti-fascists, anarchists, and radically pro-transgender. Yeah, the radical pro-transgender. The radical folks supporting someone else's right to exist by saying that should be okay. Ideologies as threats equivalent to jihadi groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, or narco traffickers. So they're so they're equating being left wing with being Al Qaeda. And Gorka, this sleaze counterterrorism czar Sebastian Gorka, he said, currently this is what the strategy says. Currently, we face three major types of terror groups: narco-terrorists, transnational gangs, that's one; legacy Islamic terrorists, that means if you have a sign that says Free Palestine; and violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. That means if you have a sign up that says ICE is bad, that makes you a violent left-wing extremist, anarchist, anti-fascist. By the way, if you're anti-fascist, what does that make you? Oh, I think you're getting close. The strategy hints at a crackdown on pro-Palestinian groups in a section laying out 5 functional aspects beyond the previously named 3 categories. It warns of new and deepening alliances between the far left and Islamists. But really what it's laying out is ways that they could go after these groups or people that protest for a free Palestine or whatever, go after them for pre-crime, saying, yeah, they haven't done anything yet, but they're a terrorist group and they're planning on making an even bigger sign that says Free Palestine. And at that point, what are you going to do? At that point, you just, at that point, if the signs get any bigger, then the whole government will fall. You got to admit. But before we move on from Cuba real quick, and I got a lot more coming up for you in a minute, but before we move on from Cuba, I put out a free Substack column. You can read it if you'd like after this live stream. Free Substack column that came out this weekend, and it is about the history of Cuba and why the U.S. rulers despise Cuba. And it is not even about, and I know many of you are going, oh, the 1959 revolution with Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, and they kicked off their capitalist chains, and the U.S. has always been furious since, and the Bay of Pigs really made them angry. That's part of it, but it goes back farther than that. This column actually is about the 1898 independence that the Cubans fought for. They achieved their independence in 1898 after 30 years of war against Spain and 300 years of Spanish colonial rule, Spanish oppression. And at the very end of that, after 30 years, the United States came in and fought 3 one-day battles, helped the rebels in Cuba for 3 one-day battles. And the U.S. had promised, McKinley and the Congress had actually signed something saying, we have no intention of ruling over the island. We will not take over the island. We don't want to rule over the people. You will have your freedom. You have your independence. We're just going to help you get rid of Spain. That's what they said. Turns out it was a lie. Now, I know United States, U.S. empire lying. What? That's crazy. No, this can't be happening. I get it. Thank you, Mustache, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Super chats totally do help the show. So please do that. Join up as well. But I'll mention more on that in a second. Anyway, that independence, Cuba's independence in 1898 lasted for like a few days. And then the U.S. said, yeah, never mind. We're going to oppress you. We're going to take over. We're going to put in puppet governments so that we can pretend as if you have your independence. And anyway, this also was the false flag beginning of the Spanish-American War. You can read it all over on my Substack. That picture you're seeing on the screen there is the blown up USS Maine, the battleship the U.S. sent to the harbor in Havana. Don't know why I said Havana. But it blows up. The U.S. and our garbage news blame Spain. and kills 250 sailors. And the U.S. then basically started the Spanish-American War. And years later, the U.S. military admitted that the explosion came from the inside. It was not a torpedo. It was not a bomb. It was not a mine. They said now either it was explosives put in the inside, or it could have been the explosion of these coal-powered generators they had then, coal-powered engines. Apparently, those were not unheard of. Coal dust could explode. But point is, it was not Spain. No matter who did it or whether it was an accident, it was not Spain. Thank you, Dan, for supporting the show. Goddamn right. So U.S. used another false flag to get into another war. But go read the full article. Free to read over at leecamp.substack.com. Before I get to more stories and videos, I got some videos to bring you as well. I hope you think you're getting 33 cents out of this episode. I don't. You might notice I don't have corporate sponsors. That is partially by my own choice, in that occasionally, in the very rare occasion that a corporation comes to me, most of them I decide are not things I support or things I would want to support, or they're connected to things I don't support. But also, I don't get approached that often because they know that I stand for certain things and am not really a Mr. Corporate America kind of guy. So therefore, the only way this show keeps going and my work keeps going is thanks to you guys joining up for 33 cents an episode / column. Basically, you take $8 a month and you break it down to per column, per episode, per episode I put out. It's 33 cents. And I can't do that without you. You guys make it possible. So I hope you see fit to join up at reallycamp.substack.com. It's cost of one beer a month, maybe 2 coffees, perhaps. Although I was in LA to do a show, and I bought a coffee at the airport, and it was $6.19. And then I was like, that's crazy for a coffee, but whatever. Not a fruity drink. There wasn't foamy things. Nobody drew a fucking flower in it. It's just a coffee. It was I'd like a coffee. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put a few drops of oat milk in it, because I'm one of these what they call in the biz lactards. I don't know if that's appropriate anymore, but anyway. So I was like, oh yeah, it was a little bit of oat milk, and they were like, oh, that costs that. That's like $2 extra. And I was like, are you serious? Like half and half, which comes from a living cow that you had to raise and then suckle off of. That's free. But oat milk is $2. Anyway, so the point is, $8 could be a coffee. I hope you join up and support this show. You can also join up at Patreon if you're more of a Patreon person. Patreon.com/LeeCamp, or my locals page, LeeCamp.net. All of those places support the show, and you guys make my work possible. I really, really, truly mean that. I'm crazy suppressed. It is funny. Sometimes people that have been fans for a pretty long time, or viewers for a pretty long time, they'll go, dude, you've got like 230,000 followers on Twitter and only like 7 people saw your tweet. I think you're being suppressed. I'm like, yeah, I think you might be onto something. Dude, you got 100,000 followers on YouTube and like only a few thousand people watch that video. I think they're suppressing it. Yeah, I think you figured it out. Not sure why I'm insulting the intelligence of my viewers, but yes. I am suppressed. I am shadow banned in all of the ways. Okay, but let's keep moving on here. Let's keep moving on here. All right. I'm going to take a risk and show a 30-second 60 minutes clip. Now, 60 minutes notoriously, like, if you just like show them sneezing, they'll put a copyright strike on your show. So I'm gonna show this at 1.2 speed so that hopefully they don't do that to me. But it's 30 seconds. Now, keep in mind, CBS and 60 Minutes have been bought and thoroughly dry humped by Larry Ellison and Donald Trump to make them as pro-US, pro-genocide, pro-Israel as possible. And yet, even the new captured, here's the thing, CBS was never great. It was always pro-empire. It was always pro-war. So I'm not one of these people that's like, CBS used to be the truth and now it's not. No, it's always garbage. It's just now it's 100% pro-genocide garbage, but pro-Trump garbage. But anyway, here is even CBS admitting, thank you, Madam Airlock, for supporting the show, covering the 2-drink minimum. Madam Airlock says, appreciate that. Thank you for making the show possible. But now here's even CBS admitting that Iran has been shipping more oil than before the U.S. attacks. This is not what we're told in most of our media. But.
And this past week, Smith and his team made a surprising discovery that Iran has exported daily 100,000 more barrels of oil than it did before the war, most of it going to China. Smith says 9 Iranian oil tankers have traveled through the Strait of Hormuz by turning off transponders that reveal locations. Thursday, on Iran state TV, the first public statement from the country's new supreme leader was read, saying, quote, "The leverage of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must continue."
So there you go. Even CBS admitting that that Trump has actually increased the amount of oil coming out of Iran, despite all of the attacks, despite all of his warnings and threats, despite blowing up schools filled with children. Iran is exporting more oil than it did prior to the attacks. And this, apparently some of this has been done by turning off their transponders and sneaking through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is monitored by the U.S., obviously, thoroughly. However, it is like 30 miles wide, meaning even though that's a tiny area relative to like oceans, that is still a large area for if you're looking for every ship. But also, the U.S. can't actually stop all of these things. Most of what the U.S. has done by blockading their blockade has just been the threat of, we might bomb you. Anyway, Trump seems to be moving closer to a so-called deal with Iran, but every time I see that, it's like Trump lies about everything. He lies because he's a liar. He lies because it makes him feel good. He lies a lot to manipulate the stock market and to try and keep the stock market high. He lies so that he can game the stock market and enrich himself with his corruption. More on that in a second. But so I don't really understand why our mainstream media still writes articles about Trump said they're nearing a deal with Iran. Trump said he's going to bomb Iran in 8 seconds. Like, he might, but it almost makes it less likely. Like, I'd be more worried he's going to bomb Iran if he says he's not going to bomb Iran. Then worry. I don't know. It's amazing we still act like anything he says matters in terms of being any kind of real view of reality. Okay. Speaking of Iran, someone got Mike Pompeo and I think Victoria Nuland and Mersheimer on a stage together, and I don't know who Stephen Walt is the last one. So it's a debate between right-wingers and less than right-wingers. Mersheimer is good on most things. And anyway, it's hilarious how idiotic like Pompeo is.
This is what human decency.
Hold on, I gotta turn down the speed. But that is Pompeo. He's lost a ton of weight, and somehow he's one of these people where he looks just creepier when now that he's lost the weight, and he's also made himself far more orange. I think because he's trying to ingratiate himself to Donald Trump. Anyway,
this is what human decency demands. You don't let a radical regime close off the global economy by firing Shahed missiles into nations that did nothing. Right, they're firing into civilians in the United Arab Emirates, even just this week. That's just not something that the world can accept. And so this monster.
I mean, how funny is just that statement? The world can't accept how unhinged Iran is. Iran fired missiles. Well, who fired missiles first? What are they responding to? Oh, a massive attack by the United States. An existential attack on their people by the United States. Like, these people are so disgusting and shameless.
Something that the world can accept. And so this monster is worthy of the hunt.
You do know, Mike, that
this monster is worthy of the hunt. You mean the monster that's responding to us, the monster? The monster that's responding to the fact that we blew up 160 little girls. That was like our opening salvo.
we started the war.
No, absolutely not.
He said, you do know we started the war, and the audience cheers, and Mike Pompeo's response is, no, we did not.
Absolutely not. Oh, no. See,
They weren't firing those missiles until Israel and the United States attacked Iran. You do understand.
Welcome to 1979, when the revolutionary regime began to kill Europeans.
You do know that we overthrew the democratically elected government in 1954.
Oh, it turns out if you actually study history, then everything you say is garbage, Mike Pompeo. Interesting. Interesting that is.
Just for the record, you were talking about this.
You don't think you think Iran's forgotten about that?
No, I suspect they've not.
You don't think Iran
No, I suspect they're not.
remembers that we supported Saddam Hussein in the Iran-Iraq war?
I know
forgotten
this.
about this?
I know this.
Other countries have history.
Do you think Iran is a monster?
I like the statement, other countries have histories. Mike Pompeo just gets thoroughly knocked out in this debate. And his next response is, this is how you know someone's losing a debate. His next response is, do you not feel Iran is a monster? And it's like, dude, if he's talking about history and you have to go to Iran monster, Iran scary monster. If you yell Iran scary monster, you've lost the debate, like as adults. Now, as children, I think that's a very good argument. Very good. Like if it was two 5-year-olds arguing, one was like, Iran scary monster. The other one's like, shit, I can't argue with that. Totally get it. Totally get it. For adults, Mike Pompeo, when adults are discussing things, yelling Iran scary monster, it's not like that's a sign that you actually lost the debate, that you can't actually argue the points, just Iran scary.
I know this. About this?
I know this.
Other countries have history.
Do you think Iran is a monster?
No.
Okay.
Do you think Iran is a monster? Okay. I win. Like he said, okay, like he wins. What? This also, by the way, which none of them, even the ones I'm agreeing with in this portion. By the way, the woman who looks like Cruella DeVille next to Mike Pompeo is Victoria Nuland. This is a stage of two psychopaths sitting next to each other. Anyway, Victoria Nuland is the proxy war in Ukraine was her baby. I mean, she supports all of our wars, but she helped create and manufacture the proxy war in Ukraine and has the blood of hundreds of thousands on her hands for that alone. But anyway, he says, oh, you don't think Iran's a monster? Okay, I won the debate because you don't say Iran's a monster. It's basically like, you're not as dumb and illogical as me, so therefore I won the debate. It is so, like, these people don't have anything else. And here's the thing. If it were just Mike Pompeo, then I might ignore this clip. But he's speaking the same way that everyone in the Trump administration would speak, the same way that most Republicans across the country, at least those that support bombing Iran, would speak, is just this idiotic garbage. It's just, I'm half brain dead. Iran monster, scary bomb, kill children. It's all they got. That's who they are. And it also speaks to, something I talk about that not many people do, is how toxic nationalism is. Nationalism is used to murder innocent people. It's used to act like everybody in Iran. Let's say Iran were the worst, the version of you could actually imagine. Let's say U.S. did nothing to them. They just started bombing. Let's say the U.S. was bombing schools full of little girls instead of the U.S. And they're just awful, okay? They're just the worst of the worst. Oh, my God, horrific. Is that every person in Iran? Every person in Iran is doing that? Or is it a certain ruling elite? And it's funny how people can understand this when it comes to our own countries. Like, if you're in the United States, people go, am I Donald Trump? No, I didn't bomb that school full of little girls. You're right. That's toxic nationalism, where people go, oh, every American is responsible for bombing that school of little girls. Well, then the reverse would go as well. All right, we can just attack every country because the ruling elite did something bad. Nationalism is a fucking brain parasite that just turns people's brains to mush. And it's designed, it's useful to control us in many ways.
Okay.
Victoria Newland says, there you go. You don't think Iran's a monster? We win. We win.
I'm glad I don't live there. I think many countries do many bad things, including my own. And I wouldn't call the United States a monster.
But Stephen,
I would call the U.S. government a monster. I'd call these ruling pedo terrorists like Pompeo and Newland monsters.
Do also remember that we wouldn't have had October 7th if we hadn't had Iranian support for Hamas.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had October 7th if you didn't have a Nakba. You wouldn't have had October 7th if you didn't put millions of people inside an open-air prison camp. You wouldn't have had October 7th if you hadn't mercilessly murdered innocent people in Gaza and the West Bank for decades. You also wouldn't have had October 7th if Netanyahu hadn't facilitated, funded, allowed it for months. Even the New York Times has covered how Israel knew about October 7th, knew every detail, knew every detail about October 7th a year in advance and ignored it because they wanted it. Hamas was practicing in the open. And guess what? Israel pulled all the people away from the walls. Israel didn't respond when they broke through the walls. Didn't respond for hours until they came in and then killed everyone. Go read up on the truth about October 7th. That's on my Substack as well. You can definitely find that article. Probably if you Google truth about October 7th, Lee Camp Substack, you'd probably find it. Anyway, it's just, these people are psychopaths, I think, is the summary of that. The grand conclusion of that. Okay, so I wanted to, this is ongoing. This is an ongoing topic, it seems. Is the right wing waking up to who Donald Trump has been the entire time? I mean, it really does speak to how dumb these people are. Like, you supported Donald Trump and you're suddenly, what? He's not a good guy. I think Donald Trump might be corrupt. Okay, so Megyn Kelly went on the show. I know nothing about this podcast. I know nothing about these two other guys you're going to see on the podcast, but you probably know Megyn Kelly, longtime Fox News. And she, of course, Donald Trump kind of hated her, right? Because they had that whole thing where she asked some legitimate questions in the debate and he despised her. But she's a lunatic right-winger in all regards. But it's just funny in this clip. Yet another well-known right-winger, well-known, at least MAGA to some degree. She didn't like him as much as the others, but person going, turns out he's corrupt. You've got a bunch of these, like Tucker Carlson's probably one of the biggest names on this list. But you even have many in the Rogan sphere that I wouldn't call full right-wingers, but they supported Trump. Dave Smith, Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz. These people are all like, I supported Trump and it turns out he's not a good guy. It's like, how dumb are you? How dumb have you been for years? He was already in office. You don't even have the excuse of like, he'd never been in office. I didn't know what he'd do. You knew. You saw it. You saw it every goddamn day. You are astronomically light speed dumb to be getting it now. Who Donald Trump is, what he stands for, that he's corrupt. I'm amazed that the moment these people admit they didn't know that their entire fan base doesn't just go, oh, I got to turn this guy off because he's a fucking idiot. Why? Why is that? Anyway, here is Megyn Kelly realizing that Donald Trump is a little bit corrupt.
I have to be honest, I didn't expect the corruption to be quite as, widespread as it's been, and like the self.
Who could have known? Who could have known after him being corrupt his entire life? After him literally getting prosecuted in the 80s, was it? Or was it 70s for having racist landlord policies? Like him having endless businesses that collapsed and failed because of his corruption. Him having literally thousands of lawsuits against him for hiring workers and not paying them. That's a form of corruption. That's a form of theft. It's called wage theft. He couldn't have known he'd be corrupt. The sleuth that figured this out beforehand. True geniuses.
Dealing and the lining of his and his family's pockets. Like, that's been a little shocking.
Right. Talking
and
billions
I just
of
didn't
dollars.
expect Trump to be so disrespectful of his base.
Right. Well,
I think she means disrespectful by doing the opposite of what the base thought he'd do. But those people were idiots. Like, if you believed Trump, he said he was going to create peace. He bombed like 7 countries last time around. Like, he blew up Iran's top general when we weren't at war with them, and he blew up Iraqi military leaders in the same strike. Like, this all happened the first time around.
you know what, Megan? I got to push back a little bit because Trump didn't take a salary while he's president. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I think he said didn't take a Saturday. I guess, is that something Trump said, that he doesn't take weekends off? But the truth is he spends a crazy amount of time golfing. So I don't know how Trump could say he doesn't take time off when he takes like hundreds of golfing trips.
Right. I mean, you look at like across the board of the Trump family. I've never seen a family get so rich off of a presidency.
Right.
And it happened at the same time as.
Who could have known? Who could have seen this coming? So I wish someone had a crystal ball.
We now have a Supreme Court ruling that basically says any official act he takes while in the White House is protected.
Right.
And those two things are, seem to be giving him some sort of a hall pass that could very much get abused. I don't want to,
What? Trump abused? Stupid. She's making that up. He wouldn't abuse like power or anything.
Say he's crossed the line legally, because I actually haven't taken a close look at that. But, he's done a lot.
No, Trump hasn't crossed the line legally. Trump violating laws? Stop it, Megyn Kelly. You stop it. You're so smart.
That pushes it right up to the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think we want our presidents or their families getting rich off of the presidency. And I really want to know more about all these trades.
Oh, welcome to U.S. empire. Welcome to capitalism. You put the richest of the rich, the psychopath billionaires, in as the powerful. And what do you know? They enrich themselves. It's so odd. Maybe Megyn Kelly, you're getting so close. Maybe if you dig a little deeper, you might figure out why it is that all the billionaire psychopath pederasts end up in the most powerful positions. Maybe just keep digging.
I really want to know more about all these trades that are happening on Iran right before he makes the announcements.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. This
Really? Or is it the way it's been for decades?
Even one of those would have caused a massive scandal 12, 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We should.
Now, she's true in that regard, in the sense that the presidents have enriched themselves with the presidency going back a long ways. But most of them carefully waited until after the presidency because, A, they thought it would ruin their political career to do it while in the presidency, and B, they thought it could be illegal. Now, we are now clearly past the time when the president worries at all about doing anything illegal. But I think that the main worry was that it might cause that it might ruin their political career to enrich themselves while in the presidency. Now, that is supposed to be illegal, the emoluments clause, but I don't know that they worried that much about the legality of it. So she is right that even just a few years ago, like 10 years ago, if you had seen a president make a trade on Wall Street, whether they claim to be separate, it's a blind trust. I don't know what's going on. But even so, if you'd seen a president make a trade on Wall Street that enriched them at the same time that they bombed Iran, and the trade enriched them because they bombed Iran, and how Wall Street responds to bombings, or the U.S. going to war, it would have been a major story, and it would have probably nearly ruined a presidency, if not ruined it. So in that regard, she's right. But everything else is just so pathetically dumb. It's just like, how strikingly dumb are you? And it amazes me that there's still people that watch this stuff. Like, I realize that I have all the suppression and these idiots have none of the suppression. They have the opposite. They're promoted on all networks and all platforms and sign massive deals. Yet still, I'm amazed. Like, do you think people would be like, wow, they're dumb. I don't know if I'm going to keep supporting that. Okay. Let's keep going. I'm going to do another long episode for you. So we'll keep going. Please, if you get a chance, subscribe, even if you just subscribe for free, reallycamp.substack.com. And, but I do hope that you become a supporting member at 33 cents an episode. But all right, let's talk about how New Orleans, among other cities, but there's more definitive research now on New Orleans, will almost definitely be gone by the end of the century. And these are like careful computer models. These and really, if you've been following the research and following the science, this shouldn't shock you that much. I've been, I mean, I don't talk about it a lot, but I've been saying this since 2005, since Hurricane Katrina, that, look, I love New Orleans. It's one of my favorite cities. It's one of I know people in New Orleans have a lot of complaints. There are a lot of issues, but it's one of the few cities, and I've traveled to cities in every state of the union. I've traveled to most larger cities around the entire United States to perform stand-up comedy. And it's one of the few cities that I've seen that really has kept its, has either kept its soul or at least has a soul that is different than your average corporate bullshit garbage across America. Most of America feels relatively the same now. It's just these shitty corporate entities. Cultures have been destroyed, and a lot of it feels the same. I'm not saying there aren't little pockets of cool things in whatever city. Totally are, but a lot of it feels the same. And New Orleans feels different, at least a large percentage of it. Part of it is they've kept a lot of these corporations out of some of the main areas of New Orleans. But anyway, I love New Orleans. I think it's one of the greatest cities in the world. But I also understand this, have read enough of the science to see that it will be underwater. It has already been underwater once, 2005. And the levees are not enough. New Orleans, you can mark this video and play it in 50 or 75 years. And if I'm wrong, I will eat my hat. I will be rather old, but I will still. So I might be eating my hat because I think it's a sandwich, but still I will eat my hat. New Orleans, this is from CNN, but they're quoting a study. So it's not, the knowledge is not CNN. The knowledge comes from somewhere else. New Orleans is locked in a watery future, which could see it surrounded by ocean as early as this century, according to a new expert analysis, which says the city must start the relocation process now to avoid chaos. And this is not the only city in America. Miami, there are many others. And then there's other cities that will be consumed by fire. It's just inevitable. And drought. And so, and people should both start planning the relocations, but also we should start fucking doing something about climate crisis instead of doing fucking nothing. And I know, look, we'll spend 8 seconds on these idiots for, it's just so pathetic. It's so sad. I'm sad to see people's brains still work this way. But I know, oh, Lee, it's a hoax. It's not real. I know. It makes you feel good. Look, I don't want to believe it either. I have a kid. Okay. It would feel so good to just go, it's a hoax, and I feel good now. Unfortunately, 99.9% of peer-reviewed scientific articles say one thing, that it is no hoax, that climate crisis is absolutely real, and it's absolutely here, and we are absolutely fucking idiots for ignoring it. And I know it just feels so good to, it's not real. Oh, it just, now you can go and relax and, not have to think about it. I know it feels great. I get it. But you just need to read a couple of articles, folks. And if you're still stuck there, you can understand. And the other thing is, like, you can hate the U.S. government. You can believe the U.S. government lies to you, which a lot of times they do. This is not just the U.S. government. This is climate science around the goddamn globe. It is not just one organization. I know WEF. And by the way, the WEF is a garbage, awful, disgusting organization. The WEF said something. Okay, don't look at the WEF. Go read the goddamn climate science. Read that. This is not just like, it's just so sad. I honestly think that most people that are still stuck in that is a hoax. I think it just makes them feel good. I think it's scary. It's a scary understanding. Reality is scary. And so I think they feel good. And I get it. It's like, I want to believe the thing that makes me feel good, but it's just not the reality. Okay, let's get back to New Orleans for a minute. Coastal Louisiana is one of the lowest lying regions in the world, and New Orleans, a city of 360,000. By the way, in a few minutes, I will bring to you the aspect of this that connects it to U.S. empire, connects it to the war in Iran, connects it to so much that's going on around the world, and no one's talking about it. Like, literally, I don't know if anyone, I don't think anyone's talking about it. A city of 360,000 people is particularly exposed. It sits in a bowl-shaped basin, mostly below sea level, in the middle of a rapidly shrinking delta. The city is almost entirely surrounded by wetlands, which act as a buffer against hurricanes and storm surges. These are fast disappearing. However, as humans drain them for development, dredge canals in them for the oil and gas industry, and construct river levees, depriving them of the sediments that stop them from being submerged. Since the 1930s, Louisiana has lost around 2,000 square miles of wetlands. And I'm glad they mentioned that this is big oil. For me, they don't mention it enough in this article. Big oil has gutted the wetlands that naturally protect Louisiana. Hurricanes need warm water, right, to get powerful. Warm, open water. When they go across something that is either not warm water or is less water, more swampy, it decreases their power. Same with storm surges. Their power is decreased by, obviously by land, but by wetlands instead of just open water. And even with Hurricane Katrina, I'm one of the few to bring you this story several years ago. Even with Hurricane Katrina, there were computer models that showed that Hurricane Katrina, or a large hurricane, I didn't know Hurricane Katrina was coming, but a large hurricane would swamp New Orleans and drown thousands. And it was because of the canals that had been built in the wetland, in those mangrove swamps, cutting out all of that swampland to create canals. And it would allow for the storm surge to go through unimpeded and therefore flood New Orleans. And the computer modeling had been right, and everyone had ignored it. The government had ignored it. People had ignored it. The computer modeling had been correct. We have far better computer modeling now than we had in 2005. And the mangrove swamps have been, swampland has been even more gutted. So it is only a matter of time. I mean, it could be this summer that New Orleans goes underwater again. But obviously, as this happens more and more, fewer and fewer people will be rebuild. More and more people will die. It will be horrific. Around 75% of New Orleans' remaining wetlands are set to be lost, and its shoreline could retreat inland by up to 62 miles, scientists have found. The region has crossed the point of no return, the paper's authors wrote, adding New Orleans may well be surrounded by the Gulf of Mexico before the end of the century. New Orleans will be underwater, and they're saying the end of the century. I'd be shocked if there are many people living in New Orleans in 25, 30 years. This is, it's horrifying. And I'm just bringing you that as an example of one city. But of course, the rising sea levels and the increased size and frequency of hurricanes is impacting people across the world. Most of the world's population live within, 100 miles of the coasts. There is a slight good news, and I'll bring you another really fun good news in a minute. But that despite the U.S. trying its best, the UN did pass another historic climate crisis resolution. Now, most of these are defanged, and most of them have very little impact, but it does help a little to at least have some sort of legality around this stuff. Despite efforts by the United States to block and water down the effort, boy, this guy can't write. Yeah, efforts and effort. The United Nations on Wednesday, in 141-8 vote, backed a resolution that confirms member states have a legal obligation to address the planetary climate crisis by mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, with nearly 2/3 of the global body voting in favor. The adopted resolution, brought to the UN by the low-lying island nation of Vanuatu, I have never seen that word, codifies the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on the obligations of states in respect of climate change. Now, these votes don't have a huge impact, but if they can change legality so that some bodies can prosecute companies for doing this type of thing, that can be important. All right, now I have a tiny bit of good news after I bring you this horrifying clip of climate scientists. So I will admit this clip is horrifying, but there is this little tiny bit of good news for Britain, and it's adorable good news too. So if you can make it through this climate science clip, then we'll get to adorable little good news. Oh wait, is the video gone? Oh no, there it is.
We are, without exaggeration, facing a trajectory and impacts that will obliterate the possibility of human civilization within, by the year 2100.
If we carry on the way we're going, I can't see this civilization lasting the end of this century. No chance, in my view, on the current trajectory.
If we get it wrong, so if we do the wrong things, then I think there's a very, very big risk that we will just end our civilization. The human species will survive somehow, but we will destroy almost everything we built up over the last 2,000 years.
Now, you'll notice a key, so those were climate scientists, you'll notice a key word in all of them, which is if we continue on this path. Now, there are a lot of other paths, and I try and sometimes bring you the solutions that are out there. And one of the most important things is we need to switch our energy source, and the other energy sources exist. Obviously there's nuclear. Now that has many of its own problems, but there's solar and wind and all these others. They don't come without some flaws, but they're not nearly the level of planetary destruction that fossil fuels come with. Now, what is this? I said earlier I would connect this to the war in Iran. I would connect this to U.S. empire. Not only because of the petrodollar. I know I talked too much about the petrodollar, but not only does it have to do with the petrodollar, the U.S. and the ruling elite in the U.S., and I'd say the ruling elite around most of the world, understand that you control energy and you control the world. Or if you control energy in a certain area of the world, you control that area of the world. The U.S. is trying to control the world's energy. Now, if you have energy that can be gained, delivered anywhere, then the U.S. has a lot more difficulty stopping it. So solar panels, for example, the U.S. would have a fuck of a time stopping China from putting in solar panels. They would have a lot of difficulty stopping China from putting in windmills or wind turbines. But stopping fossil fuels, the U.S. has some ideas on how to do that. One is to try and sanction Russia into oblivion, one of the biggest oil states in the world. One is to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. One is, and this is happening right now, the U.S. is hitting Russian oil and gas infrastructure as we speak via Ukraine. And so they're trying to shut off Russian energy that can then be delivered to China, which is the true adversary. The U.S. is trying to blockade Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has taken over at least Venezuela's oil, if not, they haven't truly couped Venezuela, but they've kidnapped their leader and taken over Venezuelan oil reserves, which is the largest oil reserves on earth. So the U.S. understands that you control energy and you have hegemony. You control the world. But the problem is that energy is shifting away from fossil fuels, which the U.S. would have a lot more trouble controlling. So that means the U.S. needs to do everything they can to make sure we don't switch to clean energy. We meaning the world. The U.S., and there may be others, but this is the most powerful one, the U.S. does everything it can to make sure that green energy does not continue to rise. They try and sanction Chinese batteries, which are needed for green energy. They try and sanction Chinese electric cars, which are far more efficient and quicker and cheaper than U.S. electric cars. They obviously are cutting off other access to green energy around the world. And this, of course, is the opposite of where humanity needs to head in order to survive the climate crisis. And each of those climate scientists, I didn't play them all, but each of them saying our civilization will end, they say if we continue on this path, our civilization will end. It doesn't mean a few humans won't survive here and there, but it means the civilization that we view as our modern civilization will be over. And so the U.S. imperial wars actually are connected to climate crisis in that the U.S. is pushing us towards climate crisis because the U.S. empire needs fossil fuels to maintain energy hegemony or energy. They need fossil fuels to be the king of the hill. Both liquid natural gas, I hate the euphemistic name, both natural gas and oil in general, crude oil, etc., coal. Okay, now this is definitely a smaller piece of good news just to wrap this up, just to give you a little palate cleanser, but it is related to the climate. Climate solutions of the week. In Britain, they've brought back beavers. And yes, I'm going to make all of the beaver jokes you can imagine I would make. Listen, when times are rough, do you not want some beaver? Look, what was I supposed to do? Fucking comedian, okay? I had to say it. I over-under on the remaining beaver jokes for this few minutes. I'm gonna go 5. 5 more. As the floods get worse, so there's floods in Britain. As the floods get worse, Britain tries a new solution, beavers. Now, here's something I didn't know until a few years ago. Beavers are incredibly beneficial. All right, now I'm not making jokes. Beavers are incredibly beneficial to the natural ecosystem wherever. They decrease the chance of floods. They increase the amount of foliage, flora and fauna that grow the amount of flora that grow. They influence the amount that animals have drinking water. They basically are the architects of awesome ecosystems and habitats. And I'm sorry I'm not an expert on this, or I'd have better terminology at my fingertips. But I do know how to make jokes about beavers. So, but they're incredibly beneficial, and yet we have hunted them in most areas to near extinction, or in a lot of areas, and therefore their awesome architecture disappears, and therefore the flora and fauna disappear, and therefore you have more floods and you have more droughts. So you bring back the beavers, you unleash the beaver, and everybody is happier. That was a good one, though. I liked that one. But until 2 years ago, West London's Greenford Tube Station used to flood whenever it rained heavily. The train tracks are above ground, but the ticket office would often be inundated. Sandbags would line the corridor. But in October 2023, a new family moved in nearby, determined to halt the water. The family members built their house from scratch with local wood and kept odd hours, sleeping all day and working only at dawn and dusk. They even put their young children to work. This is a very cutely written article. The new neighbors were beavers. The beavers are part of an unlikely effort to bring back a vanished species and help Britain adapt to a very modern problem, climate change. Anyway, let's also remember that they're adorable, and that they do awesome stuff, and that they're fun to watch. And by the way, here's a photo of this dude next to a tree that has been largely whittled out with teeth, and I think he did it. I don't think that was beavers. I think this guy's been gnawing at that tree for hours. No, I think it was probably beavers. Oh, for the love of God, show a beaver. Okay, here's some midnight video of a beaver going to work. Oh, dirty, dirty beavers. They're only out at night. But yeah, I didn't know. A couple of years ago, I watched a 5-minute documentary on how awesome beavers are. I'm not talking about porn. I'm talking about the rodents, and they're fucking awesome. If you have a chance tonight, folks, watch a documentary on beavers. Be careful what you type into the search bar, though. But yes, they actually do amazing things. And to me, this speaks to everything wrong that humans do. We just kill everything and we go, why is stuff different than it used to be after we killed all the stuff? Well, because the stuff was important. The things we killed were important. We should have let some of them be. How about that? But all right, I wanted to leave you with a little palate cleanser there. Check out my article on Cuba over at reallycamp.substack.com. There's a little bit of comedy in it as well. And I hope you'll join up. And I will see you Wednesday for another 3 p.m. Noon Eastern live stream. These are all podcasts as well. I have a podcast called Lee Camp Show on Spotify because they banned my other one. It's called Moment of Clarity on other platforms. I have another podcast called Common Censored with Eleanor Goldfield. And I have another podcast called Government Secrets with Graham Elwood. So check all that out. But really, you should join up at reallycamp.substack.com or patreon.com/LeeCamp. See you Wednesday. Keep fighting.